Ahoy, you salty sailors. Time to raise anchor and set sail for your best scrawny life. Arr!
And we'll do exactly that in a moment, but first we need to talk about
Plants.
Xanthosxylum americanum, that is, the northernmost member of the Rutaceae, the citrus family. These are dioecious plants, meaning that the whole plant is either male or female. So both types get flowers in the spring, but only the females produce the axillary fruits in late summer. They do have a compound leaf, which is always an odd number of leaflets because it has the one leaflet at the very tip. It is related to the Szechuan peppercorn and produces that same sort of numbing, tingling in the mouth. And as such, it was used by the Native Americans as a toothache remedy. It often grows in riparian riverbank sort of settings, but when I usually see it, it seems as if it's being crowded out by Lonicera macchii, the invasive honeysuckle, and other invasive plants. So let's jump right into a fishing adventure. Earlier in the year, I had been up to the Steamboat Rock area on the Iowa River and caught a decent pike that day, but the water looked so bad. Of course, the ongoing drought, the level was very low. It looked like there was a diatom bloom of some sort in the water. There was a lot of foam also floating on it. It had this brown color. And most of the rivers in the North America and Mid-Continent Rift during this drought had an algae bloom of one type or another. But later they did get a little rain in that area and a stretch of cloudy days, which was enough to kill off the algae bloom. I had caught a decent smallmouth and lost another one that was even larger when, unexpectedly, drops of water began falling from the sky. It actually was a small storm that was kind of strong, which sent me back to the car, but you can't complain. It rained that night and was still sprinkling the next morning, which I anticipated would have affected river conditions. So I decided to try Lake Red Rock again. And let me just underscore that the lake is not always like this. It's a rare opportunity, in fact, to be able to wade and fly fish at Lake Red Rock. So you have to enjoy these opportunities while they last. This is the Marina Point. The parking lot for the marina would be right behind us here. Let me just let this play out in real time. Gotta pull the fly line out on the tip of the rod. Just got out of the car, weighed in, give it a little whip. First cast, and immediate hookup. That's why I'm there. And there was a big school off the point that morning. It was just fish after fish after fish. Not bad, not a bad one. And it looks the same on both sides. Yeah, it went on and on. It like I said, the lake is not always good for fly fishing. And we've been in a drought for a couple of years, and people are starting to say, oh, the 100th parallel is shifting east. And how soon we forget that in 2018, which was only 4 years ago, the Des Moines River was over Highway 30 in Boone. And if you have ever been there, that's a huge valley. They were holding that much water back in Saylorville Lake. And Red Rock, too, was really full the entire year. There was certainly none of this waiting and catching white bass with a fly rod then. I think what the case is instead with these series of floods and droughts we've had in the last decade is really an instability in the Hadley cells, because during this time when it was very dry here in the Des Moines area, they actually got record rainfall in St. Louis. And there's a lot of things like that happening where we have dry weather area, but unusually wet in a nearby area, which kind of seems like a Hadley cell thing to me. Not that I'm a weather expert, but 2020 was the solar minimum, so that probably has an effect on the Hadley cells. I mean, somehow we forget so easily that we are 8 light minutes away from a massive thermonuclear furnace. Anyway, you could see in that last clip the wind had created a mud line along the shore, and you could see that gulls were diving in out past the mud line, and also I had to wait it out to be able to cast out past the mud line. But eventually the wind made it large enough that I could no longer wade out past it. But since I had that sinking line, I could just get in the kayak, paddle out past the mud line, and just paddle troll through a school of white bass, and just went right back to catching fish after fish. But I've edited most of that out so we could have more kayak footage. So that's what it's all about. Kayaking Lake Red Rock, living the Scrawny life. But it can't be all diving gulls and chaos in the kayak. Get ready for a look at autumn polypores. But first, a little review. We had a look at some of the identifying characteristics of Amanita bisporigera in episode 1. And then in episode 2, we looked at the confirmation bias, that tendency to see what you expect to see. And now something related to that is the tendency to be overconfident when we are learning something new. It has a name, it's called the Dunning-Kruger curve or something like that, but just because a couple college professors put their name on something that people have already known about for thousands of years doesn't mean they discovered it. Anyhow, this of course happens to everyone. It's happened to me many times in my profession and in my hobbies, all of my hobbies, and so you can be quite sure that it will happen to you as well. The thing to do is just, if you're a person who's thinking about getting into amateur mycology, is just slow way down. Take a year, a whole year, and just take photographs, post them online on sites like iNaturalist.org. Do the research. Identify as many of your photographs as you can. If it seems easier than people say, you're probably at the peak of that curve. So here we have a big old oak tree. Looks like it has a lightning scar. Sure enough, down at the base, we have the Grifola frondosa, also known as hen of the woods, or in Japanese, maitake. This is probably the prime autumn polypore that mushroom hunters are looking for. Now this one is well guarded with poison ivy. Look out, just touched the poison ivy. So be careful. You can see it has these fronds that are brown on the top. But as we cut this one loose and flip it over, you're going to see that it's white on the underside. And it does not have gills like a lot of mushrooms. Instead it has a pore surface. That's why it's called a polypore. It's composed of a lot of little holes. So all maitake are dirty and filled with bugs and every kind of imaginable creature. So you want to clean it as much as possible in the field. You don't want to drag all that into your home. And there can be spiders, there can be cockroaches, there can be every nasty thing that lives in the forest loves to get inside of these mushrooms. So just pull the fronds apart one by one and just take your time, go through and clean it thoroughly. You're going to throw about half of it away. That's just the reality of living in Iowa with the heavy insect population that we have. So just like you see here, take your time with it. So we're going to do a pasta, throwing in a little ghee and then our mushrooms on top of that, a little garlic, onion, a little salami, some olives. Mushrooms getting a little browning on them now. We're going to put in some tomato paste and kind of let that cook a little bit, kind of develop those richer flavors. Then the rest of the sauce ingredients, let that cook for a while, and then in goes the pasta. Now this is the wrong shape of pasta for the size of chunks that are in the sauce and everything, but it's what I had in the pantry. Now a little bit of the pasta water, which has a lot of starch in it, will help emulsify the fat that's filtered out of the sausage and the other liquids and so forth together, make more of a smooth, creamy sort of sauce. So give that a stir, let it get to the right consistency. A little thyme, or some other fresh herbs would be good in there, but I didn't have any right at that moment. So again, with the Parmigiano Reggiano, that does actually age long enough that it doesn't have enough lactose to make me sick. So thanks to Pasta Grammar YouTube channel for that one. And that turned out really good. I'll give that an 8 out of 10. Like I said, it was the wrong shape of pasta, but the flavor was really nice.